Continuing with Book 3, Chapter 21, Verse 16. Leela said, "If memories are the cause of one's reincarnation, then, O Goddess, tell me, what were the causes of birth of the Brahman couple, without the vestiges of their past memories?" The Goddess replied, "Know that Brahma, the first progenitor of mankind, who was absolute in himself, did not retain any vestige of his past memories in him. The firstborn, who had nothing to remember of a prior birth, was born in the lotus with his own intelligence, Chaitanya, and not because of his memory. The Lord of creatures, being thus born by chance of his own genius or creative power, and without any assignable cause or design on his part, reflected within himself, 'Now I am become another and the source of creation.' Whatever is born of itself is like a nothing that was never produced at all, but remains as the absolute intellect itself in the clouds, Srinivas. The Supreme Being is the sole cause of both types of memories, those caused by vestiges of prior impressions and those produced of prior desires. Both conditions of cause and effect are combined in him in the sphere of his consciousness. Therefore, our tranquility can only come from knowing that cause and effect are the same, and that the auxiliary cause is in him. Cause and effect are mere empty words of no significance, because it is the recognition of the universal consciousness that constitutes true wisdom. Nothing seen in the physical world or known in the mental or spiritual worlds is ever produced. Everything exists within the consciousness of its own soul. Leela said, "What a wonderful sight you have shown me, O Goddess. It is auspicious as morning light and as brilliant as lightning. Now, Goddess, please satisfy my curiosity until I become thoroughly familiar with this knowledge through my intense application and study. Kindly take me to that mountainous place where the Brahmin couple, Vashishta and Arundhati, lived, and show me their house." The Goddess replied, "If you want to see that sight, you will have to be immaculate. You must give up your personality and your ego sense and attain awareness of the unintelligible consciousness within the soul. Then you will find yourself in an empty atmosphere situated in the sky that resembles the prospects of earthly men and the apartments of the firmament, where there's nothing. In this state, we should be able to see them, the field of another's imagination, with all their possessions and without any obstruction. Otherwise, this body is a great barrier in the way of spiritual vision. Leela said, "Tell me kindly, O Goddess, the reason why we do not see the other world with these eyes, or go there with these our bodies." The Goddess replied, "The reason is that you take the true future as false, and you believe the untrue present as true. These worlds are as formless, appear in your eyes as having forms, just like you see the forms of a ring when a substance is gold. Gold, though fashioned into a circle, has no curve in it. The Spirit of God appearing in the form of the world is not the world itself. The world is an emptiness, full with the Spirit of God. Whatever is visible is like dust appearing to fly over the sea. The ultimate substance of the world is all a false illusion. The true reality is the subjective Brahma alone. Our guides in Vedanta philosophy and the conviction of our consciousness are evident of this truth. The believer in Brahma sees Brahma alone and no other anywhere. He looks to Brahma through Brahma himself as the creator and preserver of all, and whose nature includes all other attributes in itself. Brahma is known not only as the author of his work of the creation of worlds, but as existence of himself without any cause or auxiliary causation. The practice of meditation trains you to disregard all duality and variety and rely only on one unity. Until you are trained through your practice of meditation, you are barred from viewing Brahma in his true light. By constant practice of meditation, we become settled in this belief of unity, and we rest in the Supreme Spirit. Then we find our bodies to be an aerial substance that mixes with the air, and at last, with these our mortal frames, we are able to come to the sight of Brahma. Being endowed with pure, enlightened, and spiritual frames, astral or subtle bodies, like those of Brahma and the gods, the holy sages are placed in some part of the divine essence. Without the practice of meditation, you cannot approach God with your mortal frame. A soul sullied by physical sensation can never see the image of God. It is impossible for one to arrive at another's castle in the sky when he is unable to see the castle in the sky that he himself imagined. Therefore, give up your gross body and assume your light intellectual frame. Immerse yourself in the practice of yoga so that you may see God face to face. It is possible to labor and build castles in the air. In the same way, it is possible, through the practice of yoga and no other way, to behold God either with this body or without it. Ever since the creation of this world, by the will of Brahma, there have been false conceptions of its existence. It has been attributed to an external fate, niyati by fatalists, and to an illusory power, Maya Shakti, of Mayavadis. Leela asked, "O goddess, you said that we both shall go to the abode of the Brahman couple. But I ask you, how is that possible? I am able to go there with the pure essence of my sentient soul. But tell me, how will you, who are pure intellect, Chetas, go to that place?" The goddess replied, "I tell you, lady, divine will is an aerial tree, and its fruits are as unsubstantial as air, having no figure or form or substance to them. Whatever is formed by the will of God from the pure essence of his intelligent nature is only a likeness of himself and bears little difference from its original. My body is the same, and I need not lay it aside. I find that place with my body like a breeze finds odors. As water mixes with water, fire with fire, and air with air, so does the spiritual body easily join with any material form that it likes. But a physical body cannot mix with any non-physical substance, nor can a solid rock become the same as the idea of a hill. Your body has its mental and spiritual parts. It has become physical because of its habitual tendency toward the physical. Your physical body becomes spiritual, atibahika, by leaning towards spirituality. As in your sleep, your protracted meditation, and your unconsciousness to fantasies and reveries. Your spiritual nature will return to your body when your earthly desires are lessened and curbed within the mind. Leela said, "Say, goddess, what happens to the spiritual body after it has attained its compactness by constant practice of yoga? Does it become indestructible, or does it perish like all other finite bodies?" The goddess replied, "Anything that exists is imperishable, and of course liable to death. But how can something die that is nothing and is imperishable in its nature?" Again, once we realize the mistake of thinking a rope to be a snake, the snake disappears of itself and no one mistakes the rope anymore. Thus, as the true knowledge of the rope removes the false conception of the snake in it, so the recognition of the spiritual body dispels the misconception of its materiality. All imagery is an end when there is no image at all. Just like the carving of statues must cease if there is no more stone. We clearly see our bodies as full of the Spirit of God. Your gross understanding keeps you from seeing this. In the beginning, when consciousness is engrossed with the imagination of the mind, it loses sight of the One? Leela asked. How can imagination trace out anything in that unity in which the divisions of time and space in all things are lost in an undistinguishable mass? The goddess replied, like the bracelet is gold, waves in water, show of truth in dreams, and the appearance of castles in the sky, all vanish upon their accurate perception. So the imagery attribute of the unpredictable God are all nothing whatever. Just like there is no dust in the sky, no attribute or partial property that can be ascribed to God, whose nature is indivisible and unimaginable, who is an unborn unity, tranquil and all-pervading. Whatever shines about us is the pure light of that being, who scatters his luster all around like a transcendental gem. Leela said, if it is so at all times, then tell me, O goddess, how can we happen to fall into the error of attributing duality and diversity to his nature? The goddess replied, it was your ignorance that for so long has led you to error. The natural bane of mankind is the absence of reasoning, and it requires remedy by attending to reason. When reason takes the place of ignorance, in a moment it introduces the light of knowledge in the soul instead of its former darkness. As reason advances, your ignorance and your bondage to prejudice are put to flight. Then you have an unobstructed liberation and pure understanding in this world. As long as you remained without reasoning on this subject, you were neither sleeping nor wandering in error. Now your reason and liberation are awakened, and the seeds or the appearance of your desire are sown in your heart. At first, the nature of this physical world was neither apparent to you nor you to it. How long will you reside in it? And what other desires have you here? Withdraw your mind from its thoughts of the viewer, the visible, and the vision of this world. Settle your mind on the idea of the entire negation of all existence. Fix your meditation solely upon the Supreme Being and sit in a state of unalterable unconsciousness. When the seed of renunciation has taken root and germinated in your heart, the sprouts of your likes and dislikes will be destroyed of themselves. Then the impression of the world will be utterly effaced from the mind, and an unshaken inertia will overtake you all at once. Remaining entranced in your abstract meditation, in process of time you will have a soul as luminous as a star in the clear sky of heaven, free from links of all causes and their effects. forevermore. So here we learn the most important principle for the achievement of the ultimate yoga, unity with one. And that is the entire negation of all existence. This is the greatest challenge to the ego, because it is the ego that is the seat of existence in one's life. And remember, the ego is a collection of individual karmic traces. So here we're given an important technique. Withdraw your mind from its thoughts of the viewer, the visible, and the vision of this world. Settle your mind on the idea of the entire negation of all existence. Fix your meditation solely upon the Supreme Being and set in a state of unalterable unconsciousness. This is literally the description of the perfection of becoming the silent witness. We first notice the silence in the mind, and then we attribute to that the quality of the silent witness. We're going step by step in the process at the beginning of our meditation. And then we make this shift from observing the silent witness to becoming the silent witness. And from the silent witness, observing the conscious thinking mind. Observing how the mind is thinking the mantra. The silent witness does not think the mantra. It only observes the mind think the mantra when we start our meditation. And then in 77, when the seed of renunciation has taken root and germinated, as we begin to assume the silent witness as our true essential nature, we find that still within the silent witness, as the silent witness, we are observing within ourselves, within our silence, deeper and deeper levels of silence. And so what has happened? We have become the silent witness, yet within the silent witness, we're differentiating between one aspect of us and another. One aspect is observing, noticing that there are deeper levels of silence within ourselves. When this occurs, what we must do is repeat the practice that's got us here in the first place. We have observed a deeper level of silence within ourselves. We must now become that deeper level of silence. And then, if we observe an even deep level of silence, within that silence, we must become that. What are we doing? We are transcending, aren't we? We're going beyond in the realm of the silent witness. We're transcending in the silent witness. This is very important because the silent witness first is available to us when we transcend the physical body. As soon as we let go of the physical body and go beyond it, realizing we are more than the physical body, we encounter the tip of the silent witness. But then we realize, because the silent witness exists on the level of all the different bodies, the pranamaya kosha, there we can find the tip of the silent witness. The manomaya kosha, we can find a deeper level of that same silent witness. The vijnanamaya kosha, we find an even deeper level of that same level of silence. And anandamaya kosha, we find an even deeper level of the silent witness. And then we become aware of the body of bliss, the anandamaya kosha, and we briefly identify, this is who I am. But we don't stop there, do we? Because we notice within that deep level of silence, there's a deeper level of silence. We realize that this level of silence that we're experiencing is reflected silence. It's reflected from absolute silence that exists even beyond the Anandamaya Kosha. In the incredible Param Jyoti. The Param Jyoti, illuminating our mind, gives us the realization that the deepest level of silence is not utter darkness, but it is brilliant light. And once again, we transcend to find even a deeper level of silence in the Param Jyoti. And the process continues in a stepwise fashion, just as it has proceeded so far, transcending again and again and again and again. As we become familiar with who we are, we notice there's something even more silent, more deep within ourselves. Remaining entranced in your abstract meditation and process of time, you will have a soul as luminous as a star in the clear sky of heaven. free from all links of causes and their effects forevermore. Paranjyoti, the luminous star. The light beyond all light, the source of all light, Krishna's effulgence. But the story does not end there. Chapter 22, Practice of Wisdom, Vijnana Vyasa. The goddess continued. Objects seen in a dream prove to be false on being awakened. Similarly, belief in the reality of the body becomes unfounded upon dissolution of our desires. As a thing dreamt of disappears upon awaking, so does the waking body disappear in sleep when desires lie dormant in the soul. As our physical bodies, after dreaming and desiring, awaken, so our spiritual bodies awaken after we cease to think of our physical states. In deep sleep, we are devoid of desires. Similarly, in the state of renunciation, even though we are awake in our physical bodies, we have the tranquility of liberation. The desire men liberated while living, Jivan Mukta, is not properly any desire at all. It is a pure desire relating to the universal well-being and happiness. So here we understand that two natures of desire. One level of desire arises from individual karmic traces. There is a pure desire relating to universal well-being and happiness, which is obviously divine karmic traces. That is the nature of the divine karmic traces. It is the activity that created the universe in the first place, to be the home of those who have yet to achieve Jivan Mukta. And to be a playground for the achievement of Jivan Mukta. The sleep in which the will and wish are dormant is called deep sleep, but the dormancy of desires in the waking state is known as unconsciousness to delusion, moha, or unconsciousness, murcha. Again, the deep sleep that is wholly devoid of desire is called the turiya, or the fourth stage of yoga. In the waking state, it is called samadhi, or union with Supreme. So here we have a clear understanding of the difference between deep sleep and waking state. Deep sleep, wholly devoid of desire, is called turiya, or the fourth stage of yoga. Waking state This quality of being wholly devoid of desire is called samadhi, or union with Supreme. The embodied man whose life is freed from all desires in this world is called the liberated while living, Jivan Mukta. This is our objective. A state unknown to those who are not liberated. When the mind becomes a pure essence, as in samadhi, and its desires are weakened, it becomes spiritualized, ativahika, and it glows and flows like snow melts to water by application of heat. The spiritualized mind, being awakened, mixes with the holy spirits of departed souls in the other world. When your sense of individual ego is moderated by your practice of meditation, then the perception of invisible will rise of itself clearly before your mind. When spiritual knowledge gains a firm footing in your mind, you will perceive more than other worlds than you expect. Therefore, O blameless lady, try your utmost to deaden your desires. When you have gained sufficient strength in that practice, know yourself to be liberated in this life, which we know means Jivan Mukta. So what is this deadening of desires? Well, when we deaden something, we take the life out of it. And what is the life of desires? It is the underlying karmic traces. Karmic traces are like ruts in the mind that trap our consciousness to flow through them again and again, habitually. Karmic traces of the seed of habits, personality, what makes you unique. People sometimes think it is a wonderful thing to be unique. Now we realize this uniqueness is just an expression of the individual karmic trace. What's wonderful about that? When you've gained sufficient strength in that practice of deadening your desires, the balancing of karmic traces, this is our number one only priority, actually. It's the only thing we can do. As human beings, we have the ability to think a thought, and we can think any thought. If we wish to achieve the state of Jivan Mukta, liberated while living, we have to deaden our desires. And to deaden our desires, we have to think a thought that is the opposite of a desire. That will deaden the desire. That will balance the karmic trace. So we employ a number of techniques that have proven to have that ability to balance karmic traces. How many techniques do we employ in our Sahasra, Sirsha, Brahma meditation? It is a collection of techniques, isn't it? We have the technique of dharana, thinking a mantra, producing in our own consciousness a frequency. That's all we're doing. That's literally what we're doing. We think a mantra, we're producing a frequency in our mind that is the antidote of all other frequencies. That's what makes the mantra so incredibly valuable and unique. Amazing, actually, that there could be a frequency that one could think that is the antidote or the balancing opposite of all other frequencies in the mind. And by that we mean the frequencies of individual karmic traces. The mantra is not the antidote for the balancing frequency for divine karmic traces. In fact, what the mantra is obvious. It is the most perfected, distilled frequency of divine karmic traces. It is a collection or a resonance of all the divine karmic traces. That's the incredible uniqueness and wonder of the mantra. And that's what gives it its ability to balance all individual karmic traces. Quite the most incredible and unique frequency. And that's just one of the techniques that we use to balance the karmic traces. So we have an incredible opportunity every time we sit to meditate to take one step closer to Jivan Mukti. When the moon of your intellectual knowledge shines fully with its cooling beams, you shall have to leave your physical body here in order to see the other worlds. Your fleshy body has no tangible connection with one that is without flesh, nor can the intellectual body, Linga Deha, the astral body, perform any action on the physical system. I have told you all this according to my best knowledge, and the state of things as they are. Even children know that what I say is effective as the curse or blessing of a god. The habitual reliance of men upon their gross bodies and their fond attachment to them bind their souls down to the earth. The weakening of earthly desires serves to clothe them with spiritual bodies.